We share the full aesthetics of beloved content. Sometimes that content must be listed, rated, or otherwise compared. But we won't settle for a simple run-of-the-mill video. We need something more. We need the low was the recent Slaylist.
Welcome back to Slaylist. This month we have been celebrating Vampire Month on our social media sites. This episode we will be giving our picks for the top 5 vampire movies of all time. Let's get started. Welcome back, Jeff and Joanna. Let's see what they have chosen as their favorite blood-sucking movie.
What are we doing today, babe?
We're going to cover our top 5 movies that suck, but not for the reasons you think.
Our top 5 vampire flicks.
Yes, and number 5.
30 Days a Night. Be patient with this 2007 film based on the graphic novels. It really feels like a little vampire movie that could, though initially a lot of exposition is devoted to the winter phenomenon known as polar night, where residents of the northernmost town, formerly known as Boro, Alaska, experience near darkness for practically 30 days.
And that's when the vampires come.
Yeah, then it starts to feel like a really icy neo-noir western where the good sheriff, portrayed by the perpetually brooding Josh Hartnett, takes on the bad and ugly troop of invading vampires.
Ooh, Hotel Transylvania.
Yeah, the 2012 animated monster comedy, Minecraft, featuring the voice talents of Adam Sandler, Andy Samberg, and Selena Gomez, without the scene, it's sweet on the surface yet ambitious enough to tackle such topics as forbidden love, zing, and whether or not Dracula goes blah blah blah.
He does not go blah blah blah. Number 3, Fright Night.
Before going on to direct and co-write for that little Chucky, Tom Holland,
Spider-Man?
and not the other guy,
Hey, other guy.
served up this 80s teen romp of a vampire flick where high school student Charlie Brewster goes from fumbling around trying to lose his virginity to stumbling onto the fact that his new next door neighbor is a vampire.
Ooh, you're so cool, Brewster.
Initially, no one believes him, yet ultimately he is able to recruit some backup in the form of on-screen vampire slayer turned creature feature host Peter Benson, definitely portrayed by Roddy
Piper.
Roddy McDowell. It would have been so freaking
That would have been cool.
Roddy
Roddy Piper. Yeah.
I've come here to chew bubble gum and to kick vampire ass, and I'm all out of bubble gum.
Roddy Kennedy Piper.
Pepper.
Number 2, From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yes. Ooh, number 2, where it's absolutely
brilliant.
Brilliantly written by Quentin Tarantino, brilliantly directed by Robert Rodriguez, solid performances by George Clooney, Quentin Tarantino, Harvey Keitel, Juliette Lewis, Cheech Marin, breakout performances by Danny Trejo's Traps, Selma Hayek's Snake, and even the Sultan of Splatter Tom Savini is there to drop a PSA cautioning as to what may happen if you bring a knife to a gunfight.
You'll lose a beer. Number 1,
Yes, before Bella and Edward, before Buffy and Angel, Joel Schumacher brought 2 Coreys together in the 1980s to give us our number 1 pick, The Lost Boys. Trying to watch The Lost Boys. Reservoir Dogs. It's so hard to convey what this movie means to a child of the 1980s. In fact, going through this list, I was asked, could you remake this movie? Should you remake it? I don't think you can without 2 elements, one of them being the 1980s. It reeked that whole 80s MTV attitude.
and sleep all day, party all night.
It's fun to be a vampire. It also kind of toyed around with that whole 80s just say no sentiment.
Drink this, Michael, and be one of us.
Michael.
Michael.
Peer pressure. You can't make it without the 1980s. The mom even worked in a video store. You cannot make it without the 1980s. You also can't make it without the 2 Coreys, and unfortunately, Corey Haim was taken from us way too young at the tender age of 38. We miss you, bro. I don't know, if you try to remake it, maybe you set it in Myrtle Beach. I don't know. Drop us a line in the comment box. Let us know what you think. Could you remake it? Should you remake it? And that's our list. What do you think, babe?
One thing about this list is I could never stomach all the damn
so cool, Brewster.
Zing!
Well, look who's back. Spooky Thor has come back for more.
Hello, Pumpkin Patch, and welcome back to Spooky Thor's Silly and Sideways Top 5. This month, we'll be talking about vampires. Number 5 is Underworld Awakening. It's actually been exactly 10 years since this movie came out, and it's got an Evanescence song from that then new album they had back then that I was just jamming out all the time, so got a lot of good memories with this one. Number 4, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. Just really brings me back to the good old days of early movie theater time. Number 3, 30 Days of Night. Vampires in Alaska. What more could you want? Number 2 is Blade, arguably the godfather of the modern comic book movie. And number 1, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the one with Christy Swanson and David Arquette, Donald Sutherland, that came out in '92. That of course spawned the great series that I would absolutely cite as the thing that got me into the supernatural and spooky media. What's your personal top 5? And also special shout out to The Brood, which is a wrestling vampire group from the late 90s if you don't know, but that's for another video in another series coming up. But just wanted to drop that little seed right there. Stalk us on all the socials, hit all the nice little bell, subscribe, comment, every little thing. YouTube loves the engagement. You probably already know this.
Oh yeah!
Well, hello there, Jessica. I wonder what you have in store for us this month. Don't keep us in suspense.
Hey, it's time for me to talk about my top 5 favorite vampire movies. Honestly, when James asked me to do this, I've not seen a lot of vampire movies, so what I'm bringing to the table is a mixed bag. Number 5 on my list. This is going to be controversial. I'm okay with that. Twilight. Follow me around the room on this. Twilight as a movie, maybe it's not great, but its cultural significance is enough for it to make the list. And honestly, like I told you guys, I haven't watched a lot of vampire movies, but I was definitely in my early 20s when the first Twilight movie came out. I read the first book, I watched the first movie. It brought a lot of people to the horror genre who may not have been there otherwise. And so that's why Twilight made my vampire movie list. I know a lot of you guys are gonna at me in the comments for that. Quite alright, go ahead and do it. I'm okay with it. Alright, next on my list is another vampire movie with a ton of cultural significance, I feel like, which is Blade. Also a movie that Wesley Snipes did to pay his tax debts. I'm a CPA, and whenever my clients take a new job to pay off their tax debts, which means they'll have less tax notices, always a good thing. That always makes me super happy. That's not why it's on the list, but just a off comment. Because that's what I do, is go on rabbit trails. Can't wait for the new run of Blade. Maybe my list is slightly different when that happens. Number 3 on my list. Did I mention to you guys I haven't seen a lot of vampire movies? Hotel Transylvania. I watched this movie while I was in a cardio cinema running on an elliptical machine. And I watched this entire movie and I thought that it was cute and also another way to bring younger people into the horror genre, which I thought was really cool. And I thought it was a well-written and funny movie. Number 2 on my list, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. I don't know if you guys know this about me, but I love historical fiction, and that's why Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter is historical fiction. Also, do you think that people who think enslaving other human beings are vampires? Hey, me too. And it's an awesome, super fun movie, and there's some elements of comedy, and maybe some of that comedy is unintentional, but overall, I thought it was great and wonderful, and it entertained me. Number 1 on my list is also a classic Universal monster movie, Dracula. I know you're like, Jessica, are you always gonna put the Universal Monster movie at number 1 on all of these lists? I don't know, maybe. You have to watch next month and see. Not one of the many, many remakes that there are. I'm talking about the 1931 classic Universal Monster movie, Dracula. Bela Lugosi plays Dracula. I think that's a pretty classic and amazing performance. Overall, I think something that everyone who's a horror movie enthusiast should take the time to watch and enjoy. That's it for my list. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Thanks so much for listening to my list.
And finally we have James, the host of Vampire Night from Days of Halloween, will show us his favorite Undead films.
28 Days of Night continues here on the Fall Horseman. I'm James, and here's my picks for the top 5 vampire movies ever. And in a vampire's case, that's a long ever, because they live forever. Number 5, From Dusk Till Dawn, starring that dude from ER, Quentin Tarantino, Daddy Trejo, and Cheech Marin 3 times over. It has a I can't even say it. Interesting fact, actually bounced around in Hollywood for quite some time. It was supposed to be a Tales from the Crypt movie. But Bordello of Blood, also a vampire movie, bombed at the box office and sucked in a way that is not good for a vampire movie. So script got kicked back, and then we get From Dusk Till Dawn. Number 4, Queen of the Damned. I know there's a lot of Anne Rice fans out there that don't really like it, but I love the film. Plus, on top of that, you get an awesome soundtrack, which is essentially just pure nu metal. In fact, definitely check it out. And check out the soundtrack, which I'm sure nowadays would be called, now that's what I call nu metal. Do they still make those albums? Number 3, Dracula, 1931. Bela Lugosi's 1931 performance of Dracula is on the far good side of the people who have played Dracula. I mean, mind you, they just hand out Dracula roles in like every movie, but Bela Lugosi's is the best of all time. I don't know who's on the other end over there. I don't know. Maybe Leslie Nielsen? I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of that movie. Number 2, Let the Right One In. Full warning though, this is a foreign language film, and it has a lot of subtitles, and it moves a little slow because it's a European horror film. But I love both of those things, so check it out. Number 1, The Lost Boys. Kiefer Sutherland is fantastic in the film. You got the Coreys in it. I mean, you've got an awesome soundtrack. Good soundtracks have a tendency to show up in vampire movies, now that I'm noticing this. This isn't a Days of Halloween. But I personally think that Lost Boys is the best vampire movie to ever be made. It has a very special place in my heart. And it has always made me rethink how I feel about Chinese food.
We hope you enjoyed the Fall Horseman's selections for Vampire Month. What are your favorite blood-sucking movies? Let us know in the comments. Would you like to build a Slaylist? Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook for information on how you can have your picks featured on a future episode. We will see you next month for Creature Features. Thanks for riding with us.
Thank you for watching. If you don't mind, please click or treat. That's where you like, share and subscribe. You can also stalk us on all the social media sites. Thank you for riding with the Fall Horsemen, where Halloween lives and fall is forever.